Psycholinguistics by Gary Stewart. Understanding the way humans learn is very important to improve the teaching techniques needed to achieve a better, more practical education process. Psycholinguistics studies all of the essential elements in how we learn, use, and understand a language. Theories among the years have developed different concepts to explain how these language processes take place, but thanks to all the technological advances, now we can really see the brain and all its functions while using a language.
Psycholinguistics. It is a branch of study which combines the disciplines of psychology and linguistics. It is concerned with the relationship between the human mind and the language as it examines the processes that occur in the brain while producing and perceiving both written and spoken discourse. It emerged in the late 1950 to 1960 as a result of Chomsky's revolution. There are three primary processes investigated in psycholinguistics: language comprehension, language production, and language acquisition. Language comprehension is more complicated than it might at first appear. Comprehending language involves a variety of capacities, skills, processes, knowledge, and dispositions that are used to derive meaning from spoken, written, and sign language. Comprehension is mainly thought to occur in the Wernicke's area of the brain, which is located in the left temporal lobe. Language comprehension is a complex process that occurs easily and effortlessly by humans. It develops along with the brain and is able to be enhanced with the use of gestures. Although it is unknown exactly how early comprehension is fully developed in children, gestures are undoubtedly useful for understanding the language around us. Language production is the production of spoken or written language. It describes all of the stages between having a concept and translating that concept into linguistic form. The basic loop occurring in the creation of language consists of the following stages: 1. Intended message. 2. Encode message into linguistic form. 3. Encode linguistic form into speech. 4. Sound gets from speaker's mouth to hearer's ear. 5. Speech is decoded into linguistic form. And 6. Linguistic form is decoded into meaning. Language acquisition is the process by which humans acquire the capacity to perceive and comprehend language, as well as to produce and use words and sentences to communicate. Language acquisition usually refers to first language acquisition, which studies infants' acquisition of their native language. Second language acquisition is distinguished from first language acquisition because it deals with both children and adults as they learn to speak and write additional languages. The first stage of a person's first language acquisition process is referred to as babbling. This stage is self-explanatory in which a child begins to make random sounds with their vocal cords. Some of these sounds are made for the purpose of communicating, others are for no purpose at all. This stage is an exploring stage for the speaker to develop sound and maybe a few specific phonemes. Also, during this stage, the child may be able to nod yes or no in response to questions or point to things they want. The second stage is the one-word stage or holophrastic stage. At this stage, a child can begin to utter recognizable words or at least phonemes that resemble words or simple phrases. Children develop these singular words throughout association and experience. For example, if a child's father is bald, the child may point to a bald man walking down the street and say "Dada," assuming that all bald men are their father. This association shows that the child is beginning to understand the meaning of words, but not yet in their entirety.
The third stage is called two-word stage. The child begins to develop more complex phrases with multiple words which form a more complete thought than in previous stage. The child can better define items and personal belongings by combining two words at a time. For example, the child may point to a car and say, "Mommy car," communicating that either the child thinks that is her mother's car or it actually is. During this stage, thought the child is only using two words at a time, they are still able to put the words in an order that closely resembles the order in which the words should be in a fully formed sentence. The fourth stage is referred to as the telegraphic stage. During this stage, the child's analytical skills enhance and their ability to form complete sentences emerges. Their words have more of a purpose rather than simply identifying objects and people like in the previous stages. At this point a child's life, roughly age 2, they begin to acquire new words more rapidly and their vocabulary increases at a rate of as many as 10 words per week. The final stages of first and second language acquisition have the same result, fluency. The child can verbally produce complete sentences, thoughts, and ideas. By this final stage, the child will also be able to understand and maybe even produce nonverbal communication with a native speaker. The child would exude confidence in the language at this stage, and if the child were an English language learner, may even be mistaken for a native speaker themselves. Similarly, in the second language acquisition, the first stage is referred to as pre-production. During this stage, the child has minimal comprehension of the language and cannot make sense of words, neither in understanding nor speaking. Much like first language acquisition, nonverbal communication is important during this stage because the individual cannot yet effectively communicate with their desires throughout language. Typically, during this stage a student will be able to point and nod yes and no in response to very basic questions and prompts. The second stage is referred to as the early production stage. During this period, the child begins to grasp simple concepts in the foreign language and has the ability to produce simple one or two word phrases. In a language class, the instructor can begin to ask more complex questions that require more than a yes or no answer. Most of the verbs the child uses during this stage are likely in the present tense. The third stage is referred to as speech emergence. Similarly to the third stage of first language acquisition, the child can construct simple phrases and communicate basic ideas. The child's comprehension improves greatly, but production is still low. This is a stage in which grammar errors occur frequently and sentence structure is not always accurate. Nevertheless, the child can communicate throughout an ideas and he can respond effectively to more advanced questions like why and how. The fourth stage is called intermediate fluency, in which the child is able to form complete thoughts and sentences. Their grammatical errors reduce and they make more of a conscious effort to speak correctly. The child's comprehension by this stage is excellent and production is advanced as well. In a language class, the instructor could begin to ask hypothetical questions and assign analytical topics because the student will be capable of producing the appropriate responses during this stage of second language acquisition. Main theories of psycholinguistics. The first one is imitation, nativism, or behavioralism. It is based on the empirist or behavioral approach. The second one is innateness, based on the rationalistic approach. And the third is the mentalist theory, based on the cognitive psychological approach.
Children learn to speak by imitating the utterances heard around them. Children strengthen their responses by the repetitions, corrections, and other reactions that adults provide. Thus language is practice-based. General perception is that there is no difference between the way one learns a language and the way one learns to do anything else. Main focus is on inducing the child to behave with the help of mechanical drills and exercises. Learning is controlled by the conditions under which it takes place and that as long as individuals are subjected on the same condition, they will learn in the same condition. Children are born with an innate propensity for language acquisition, and that this ability makes the task of learning a first language easier than it would otherwise be. The human brain is ready naturally for language in the sense when children are exposed to speech, certain general principles for discovering or structuring language automatically begin to operate. Chomsky originally theorized that children were born with a hardwired language acquisition device, otherwise known as LAD, in their brains. He later expanded this idea into that of universal grammar, a set of innate principles and adjustable parameters that are common to all human languages. The child exploits its language acquisition device to make sense of the utterances heard around it. Deriving from this primary linguistic data, the grammar of the language acquisition device is exploited to explain the remarkable speed with which children learn to speak, and the considerable similarity in the way grammatical patterns are acquired across different children and languages. According to Chomsky, the presence of universal grammar in the brains of children allows them to deduce the structure of their native language from mere exposure. Primary data is then used to make sentences of structures after a process of trial and error, corresponding to those in adult speech. Language acquisition must be viewed within the context of a child's intellectual development. Linguistic structures will emerge only if there is an already established cognitive foundation. Before children can use linguistic structures, they need first to have developed the conceptual ability to make relative judgment. The theory focuses on exploring the links between the stages of cognitive development and language skills. The links have been clearly shown for the earliest period of language learning, up to 18 months of age, relating to the development of what Piaget called sensory-motor intelligence, in which children construct a mental picture of a world of objects that have independent existence. During the later part of this period, children develop a sense of object permanence and will begin to search for the objects that they have seen hidden.
Language is a part of culture and is a very important facet of one's identity. By acquiring a language, a person attains expressiveness and relatability without which she would not be able to communicate or form relationships. Language is natural and necessary. Children that go through both first and second language acquisition at a young age are fortunate to be bilingual. Later in life, these skills will prove to be useful and will make those individuals versatile and multifunctional. The process of language acquisition can be stressful and adapting to new cultures as a second language learner can cause anxiety, but the end result of language acquisition is very rewarding.